2, 1. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for attending the American High School Attendance Area Measure E Bond Program update. We will be presenting to you guys this evening just a very high-level overview of the projects that are currently going on in your program and give you a snapshot of some of the successes that we have completed over the past few years since the bond program has been started. I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, CJ Kamek, to give us a few words and then we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Kelly. I just want to welcome our audience. We've got almost 60 attendees. We appreciate that kind of involvement, and it is through the support of our community that we're able to do these projects under the current bond measure. So I thank you very much for being here, being involved, and being a part of the process. I will turn it back to you, Kelly.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to give a quick introduction to the folks that we have online. We have Mr. Gerald Green with Vanner CM on our upper right-hand corner. We have Sharon Coco, who is our facilities administrative support person. We have Mr. Kevin Arthur, who is our director of maintenance and operations for FUSD. We have our associate superintendent, Mr. Marcus Battle. And of course, you guys just heard from our superintendent, Mr. CJ Kamek. And Luis Zamora is our technology technician, who is so wonderful in live streaming our program. And myself, I'm Kelly Lynch McMahon, the Director of Facilities for Fremont Unified. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you all just give me one moment, we can go ahead and I'm going to reduce this. And I cannot see everyone. So Sharon, I've given you privileges. So I'm going to just move this around so we can see everything. All right. Okay. So when we talk about Measure E, some of the language that we took directly from our bond language stated that every child who attends Fremont School deserves safe, equitable, well-equipped classrooms and up-to-date science labs. Measure E will improve every Fremont school, not just one or two. Fremont residents will see major renovations and new buildings at schools throughout the community. As I stated, this is coming directly from your Measure E ballot language that you all approved many years ago. And so we are celebrating Measure E in this presentation today. Once again, with our opening remarks, we are from our superintendent, we're going to review the progress made on the bond. We're going to showcase the projects in your specific attendance area. We're here to also capture questions from you, the community, and we're going to give you a short look-see of projects ahead that are coming in the future. Our panelists are our superintendent, Mr. CJ Kamek, of course, Mr. Associate Superintendent, Mr. Marcus Battle, myself, Director of Facilities, Kelly Lynch McMahon, our program manager, Mr. Gerald Green of Vanner CM, and of course, I did introduce also Kevin Arthur, our Director of Maintenance and Operations. And we were to have members of our Community Oversight Bond Program, but they were unable to attend today. So the American Attendance Area is one of 5 in Fremont Unified and one of the 2 largest in the district. As you can see where the diagram shows, the area in yellow is the American High School Attendance Area. The second largest attendance area is the Kennedy, which would be purple here. And they were also at a presentation earlier last month. So schools in your area, I'm just going to move this over so that we can see. Schools in your attendance area include elementary schools of Ardenwood, Brookvale, Forest Park, Oliveira, Patterson, Warwick Elementary. Your middle school is Thornton Middle School, and your high school. Just to give you a little bit of history, your bond program was established in 2014 by you, the voters, who passed a $650 $650 million Measure E general obligation bond with a 61.8% yes vote to modernize your neighborhood schools under the requirements of Prop 39 and the School Facilities Local Vote Act. All Measure E funding is dedicated to improving the Fremont schools. And just so that you know, there are no bond dollars that go to administrators' salaries, benefits, or other operating expenses. Everything is totally dedicated to the completion of the modernization of your schools. The Measure E scope of work included conducting an extensive facility needs assessment and then developing a long-range facilities master plan. The Board of Education, through a comprehensive and inclusive process, identified the following scopes of work: upgrade and repair neighborhood schools, update technology in aging classrooms, create math and science and computer labs for the 21st century learning model, upgrade electrical wiring to current safety codes, fix and replace leaky roofs, aging and plumbing restrooms were to be updated and repaired as prioritized. Removal of all asbestos and any other contaminants that were identified at the school sites, and to repair, construct, acquire equipment, classrooms, and upgrade and refresh sites and facilities. And just so that you guys know, the removal of the asbestos occurred in 2017 and 2018. And all of the areas that were identified in all the schools district-wide, those areas were abated and taken care of. So you can be rest assured that there are no contaminants that are currently in your school sites regarding asbestos or any type of lead in the pipes for the water fountains. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gerald Green, and our program manager, and he's going to walk us through and introduce the program staff.
Hi, and thank you all for coming again. Vanner Construction Management is the construction manager and program manager for the Fremont Unified School District construction program. And I'd like to introduce you to some of those staff. We have myself on the left, the program manager. We have Carmen Berkey, who is our senior project manager. She's been on the program about 2 years. We have Deshawn Hall, who is also one of our senior project managers, and she's been with the program about 1.5 years. David Seth, another one of our senior program managers, has been with the program about 1.5 years as well. Next slide. Next slide. Also, Rajat Jacob, one of our assistant project managers, has been with the program 2.5 years. And he works on Thornton Middle School, Washington High School Theater, American High School, Walter Middle School, and Horner Middle School projects. Connie Tung, our financial administrator, she's been with the program about 4 years and manages all budgets and invoices. Melissa Nunez is our contracts administrator. She's been with the program about 3.5 years and manages contracts, RFQs, RFPs, and bids. And Deborah Moore, project coordinator, has been on the program about 7 months. Next slide. In addition to the construction that you see, we also have the Proposition 39 lighting upgrade projects. The California Clean Energy Jobs Act, Proposition 39, K through 12 program awarded more than $1.7 billion over 5 years to schools to plan and install energy efficiency upgrades and clean energy generation measures. Next slide. Using Prop 39 funds, 21 campuses benefited from lighting replacement projects throughout the district. Within the American attendance area, the following schools are scheduled for this work: American High School, Brookville Elementary School, Forest Park Elementary School, and Warwick Elementary School. Next slide. And I will turn it back over to Kelly for the budget overview.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. So just a quick overview of the budget for Measure E. We have completed projects to date of $123,967,435. We have current in progress construction of 501,997,138. And we have projects that have not been started totaling 35,821,965. And then, of course, not funded, there's $0 allocated. And our program contingency is 2,219,527. And we have a reserve that we have set aside for Centerville and Hopkins of $4,198,656 for a grand total of $668,204,721,000. I'm sure you guys are wondering, well, how come it says 668 versus 650 million? Well, as the program has progressed over the last 4 or 5 years, we have earned interest on the monies that we have deposited, as well as we have received supplemental grant dollars that have been used to add to the scope of work, as well as the fund to support some of the program initiatives that we've identified from the state of California and the Office of Public School Construction. So that's why you see an increase in the dollar value associated with the bond program. When we talk about completed projects, you have projects that are IT upgrades. Those projects include projects at Ardenwood, Brookvale, Forest Park, Oliveira, Patterson, and Warwick. You have flooring projects that were completed at American High. You have new classroom projects that are Brookvale, Patterson, and American High School. And you have modernizations that include Oliveira and American High School. And once again, this is strictly for your attendance area. And when we talk about the scopes of work for those various things, that includes demolition, abatement, and installation of flooring in selected areas with existing asbestos-contained flooring materials. The work that's been completed so far at American High School is $228,601. And our district-wide IT upgrades have totaled $50,152,643. And these projects have touched 34 of the campuses district-wide. And that scope of work includes installation of new data cabling, data racks, wireless and internet access points, as well as clocks, bells, and speakers, and new telephones. And you guys wonder, well, why is this so expensive and why is it such a big deal? This was a massive project to basically upgrade and synchronize the district and standardize all of the campuses so that everyone would be able to communicate with one another and have a synchronized and unified bell system, speaker system, and unified telephone system. So it became really important for us to accomplish this in a very short period of time. And so I know a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Able during the pandemic to be able to provide wireless capabilities to the schools and to be able to provide wireless access points for people to be able to communicate with teachers and instructors, as well as administrators during this period of time. So it was quite a task to have completed, and we are about 95% complete with that right now. When we talk about the new classrooms, Brookvale is scheduled to get a new 2-story classroom building with 8 classrooms and 2 new toilets. That construction cost is totaling $5,394,212. Patterson Elementary School is, has a new 2-story classroom building and science lab and math classroom building that received mitigation measures of $5,643,163. But I believe that there's a comma error in that overall construction cost for Patterson, but they are going to be receiving a new 2-story classroom building and science lab and math classroom building. And then they have done some asbestos abatement at that site as well. So when we talk about American High School, I'm sure you guys are wondering, well, what has actually been completed? So American High School had two new two-story science buildings with 12 classrooms, 6 science labs, 3 toilet rooms, as well as elevators. Very impressive new construction. These are some still photos that you can see. This, some of the students actually had an opportunity before the pandemic to actually occupy the new facilities. And as you can see, the grounds are, they have nice open space as well as lots of natural light and updated lighting, as well as shading and screens for the windows. And there is a short video that we have for you all to see. I apologize, my computer seems to be running pretty slow. So let me go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys see the video. And share. Go. And as you guys can see, these are the 2 new structures that were added. They have an interior courtyard space that tie the 2 buildings together. There's also open space for students to congregate, as well as transverse from one building to the other. As you guys can see, there are wraparound walkways on both. The scope of work included upgrading the HVAC and replacing the chiller plant on site. So all buildings now have centralized heating and cooling. The updated spaces that you guys will see feature state-of-the-art teaching tools, and we have modernized all the common areas to meet all of our required ADA upgrades and requirements. There were new elevators added to both buildings, and here's a quick snapshot you can see. It's double wide, and it does have the ability to go up and down. Here is a new classroom. This additional space will support student campus life and provide great support to the 21st century learning model. Here's new lighting, as well as new sprinklers. There's a new wireless remote that you see there in the ceiling, new HVAC. This is one of our science labs. Unfortunately, as you can see, the chairs are all up because no one's in there, but you can see it's quite a nice space with lots of surface area for students to do their lab work, as well as movable tables to create pod spaces in the classroom for learning. This is another vantage point in one of the other walkways where you can see there's lots of natural light coming in. These are new restrooms that have been installed, and this is another standard classroom that you all can see in the new facility. New furnishings as well have been shown. And as you can see, they have new technology to aid in teacher instruction as well. So here is a vantage point from the upper deck of the 2nd story of one of the buildings. And as you guys can see, it does support health and wellness and is integrated very nicely into the existing campus to complement the existing structures. I know when you're driving by, it's very hard to even notice that the buildings are there because they have blended in so well with the current facilities that were existing on site. We want to thank Mr. Zamora for his drone footage. And if you want more information, please go to our website. So I'm going to go back to our presentation. And let's see here. Let's go to the next slide. So when we talk about the modernization scopes of work, we have Oliveira Elementary School, and that is a small project of $2,207,734. It's going to receive HVAC upgrades, a new sump pump upgrade, exterior lighting, asbestos flooring removal and replacement, door hardware upgrades, and alternates for new shade structure and an administrative building HVAC upgrades. So it's not going to be the really pretty sexy stuff that you're going to see, but it's going to be the functional stuff that will be apparent. This is our other large project that's currently under construction, which is Thornton Middle School. And Thornton has a budget of $92,473,823. It has been broken up into 4 phases. Increment 1 is site work, and that has been 50% completed because part of the site work was included for the ball fields. Increment 2 is the new classroom building, and that is currently under construction, and the foundations for that building are actually being put in place right now. Increment 3 is the modernization and the fields, and because of the pandemic, we actually resequenced this particular project and did the fields first, and the modernization will come actually under increment 4. And so increment 4 is the new library administration building and paving. We have also resequenced that work so that we can capture, of course, the opportunity to build while students are not on campus, but because we will be returning to school, hopefully in the fall, we have gotten kind of all the nasty underground work out of the way that potentially may have been a hazard for students and staff at that time. And of course, we're staying away from the rainy season, so that's the main thing. The scope of work here, if you guys can see my mouse, this is Thornton Avenue here. You all are going to be getting a new drop-off zone, which is here. So you'll be entering from Thornton Avenue, and there'll be a loop that will take you around and exit directly back onto Thornton. There's also going to be this area here is going to be also revitalized, and the entry and exit has been changed so that you have a greater flow of traffic coming in as well as ease of going out. Additional parking spaces have been added in this area. And then this area back here, you're getting all this new additional parking behind the existing gym building. This area here is all of your new sport courts. And then your ball field and soccer field and baseball field are in this area back here. These are going to be portables that are going to be brought in for the transitional housing while the new structures are being built and the old structures have been taken away. These will house students during the construction time. These are your new structures here in blue. And this is actually going to be the last part of the project that gets done, which is the administrative center that the principal's office, your support services, and some of your other secondary support services occur in this building. All of these buildings in orange are going to have minor modernizations occur. Minor modernizations include they're going to have windows replaced. There's going to be HVAC modifications. There's going to be exterior painting and trim, some door modifications where necessary, new hardware. The thresholds will be modified to ensure that we have ADA compliance and accessibility requirements met. We have a new outdoor classroom that's going to be built here and also here that currently do not exist. This is also going to be another outdoor education space that currently does not exist. And as you guys can see, we are putting in a lot more trees and a lot more gathering spaces for students to have, as well as some additional shade structures that will provide some shade for them during sunny days. The current capacity of the current structures, it's 1,194 students. The temporary portables that we currently have on site will house 180 students. And the new structures that we're building will actually house 802 new students. So based on what we are building and adding it to what's currently there, the current capacity we are anticipating for Thornton will grow to 2,176 students. So, and this meets the required capacity based on current enrollment numbers and projected numbers for the current middle schools and moving forward, I believe through 2026-27 school year. Here are some renderings that the architect provided for you so you guys can see. This is kind of the interior space, what it's modeled to look like. This is the backside of the second building. So what you're looking at here is actually this area on this side reflecting this area here. Here is the current principal's office is in this building. So you guys can see that this building is going to fit directly behind that building. And here in the background, you can see these are the play courts, the track, and then your play fields are on the backside. So here's another rendering that the architects provided for us. Here you can see in this, here are your flexible play fields. You currently have, I don't know how many folks have had an opportunity to go out there, but we do have this particular space has been completed and has been turned over back to the district for us to have the ability to use it. So we have a ball field here and we have a soccer field here. Orientation of these two locations is such that you have the ability to actually also have other sports play in this area if needed. And the ball field will accommodate elementary as well as middle school ball. And here are your play courts that include basketball, badminton, and I believe there's a couple four-square courts here as well. This is a rendering of the main building that you guys will see from Thornton Avenue when the new administrative building is complete. And these are renderings to identify increment 3, which is the modernization of the existing buildings. The grassy play fields are completed. The running track is completed, as well as the paved play areas are completed. And increment 4, based on the original phasing plan and construction, included the new library and administration building, which is this, and then the parking lot improvements and student drop-off. So here are some current site progress photos. Here are the current play courts as they are. I actually took these photographs, this particular photograph today. And then these are progress photos that were provided to us from the contractor as they were installing. This is them installing the track and field. And these are your grassy areas. And then this is a picture of them actually installing the underground utilities. And this is actually part of the foundation work that's required for the new 2-story structures. And then this is just another view of the ball field going in and them surveying and making sure all of the sight lines are accurate and correct. And as you guys can see, there's been a new screen as well as a new cage that's been installed to capture any flyaway balls or foul balls that would go off to either side. And we did also, behind that area, increase the foliage. So I believe that we planted, I believe it was about 14 new shrubs and trees. So they will also be providing a nice privacy screen for the neighbors who are residing on that backside of the ball field. Here is the Thornton construction budget. And this budget has been board approved. So the site total is $500,000. The planning for all increments is $10,366,466. Your construction total is $61,742,237. Other construction costs, which include your inspections, your testing, our agency fees, and various testing that we have to do throughout the project, is $6,199,050. We have a testing total of $1,225,473. We have our inspection services at $1,275,625. We have furniture and equipment. And when we talk about furniture and equipment, this is furniture for the new buildings and equipment that is considered to be a fixed piece of equipment that will reside in the building. When you think of equipment and you think of tools that the teachers will need, that is actually going to be taken out of a separate budget, and it is dealt with differently than taken out of the bond fund. So I just wanted to make that distinction because I know that we did have a few questions at our last public hearing where people were confused as to why certain tools weren't present in the classroom. And it turned out that those were actually items that every year teachers have to go directly through their principal, and the site has to actually acquire those, versus the things that the bond program is providing are fixed pieces of furniture like cameras and televisions and video recorders that are mounted and fixed as part of the structure. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood that and didn't confuse the two. We have a project contingency of $5,644,912. And we have an allocation and overhead expense of $4,363,141 for a grand total of $92,473,823,000. So here's our milestone schedule. And I know that we've gotten a lot of questions from various parents over probably the last 2 months wondering, hey, when is the middle school really going to open? We shifted the schedule. We had some design changes that occurred last summer that actually forced us to extend the schedule. So with the resequencing and re-staggering of the work, the new construction will be completed by September of 2022. And what that means is that students will occupy those two new facilities at that time. The modernization work that will be the administrative buildings, that will go on through 2023. And that is because, once again, we ran into some challenges with DSA and having to resequence work and kind of shift things around. And we are, of course, finishing all of the work that's required for students to occupy the building safely and occupy the site with no interruption. So this is our final closeout. We will finish between August of 2022 and September of 2023. Many people will say, well, why does it take so long? Well, you have to understand, we have an entire campus that is being closed out because there's work that's being done on all of it. So in the process of commissioning, testing, and finishing work, it's roughly about a year's time that we're going to be taking to close out from the new construction and work our way through the modernization and actually finish the modernization work as well. So the hope is, and we're crossing our fingers that we don't stumble across any more challenges, that we will be finished by fall of 2023. So when we talk about modernization, we also want to talk about American High. So this is the other piece of the American campus. There were the new structures, but there was also new HVAC in the classrooms that occurred, science labs, and the new HVAC system actually replaced the old chiller system that was actually on the campus. And so that has been replaced, revamped, and brought up to 21st century standards. We have replaced the rented chiller and put a new chiller in that now serves all the common areas and Wing 500. There's been full technology infrastructure, scope of work upgrades that have been done throughout the campus. And there's been a full roof restoration of the main building and the gym. So we should, cross our fingers, not have any leaks come rainy season, and we should not have any other challenges related to roofs leaking or damages due to old systems not being working correctly. So we'll just cross our fingers, because all construction is always not guaranteed. Here are some pictures for you guys to see. This is the completed ceiling fans that are part of the gymnasium and part of the HVAC upgrade. Here are the new installed chillers here. And here's your new rooftop HVAC that services the theater and Wing 700. And this has been tested, and we have actually been running tests on it probably since last fall consistently, and we have not had any challenges so far. So we're very excited about that and very happy. Here's Brookville Elementary. This school is going to be having a project budget of $6,677,443. It's going to get a full HVAC replacement, roof repair, flooring replacement, and upgrade of the fixed furniture and equipment. And Brookville's schedule is, we're hoping to complete the design phase this spring. We currently are working with our design team to, get all of our information together and submit to DSA hopefully next month. And we will hopefully have everything back before our October date so that we can actually begin construction in January of next year and finish by the end of the summer and be ready for an August 2022 occupancy of that facility with the new work that we're completed. Here with our unfunded projects, with the prioritization that occurred, there were several projects that were tabled because they either were not at a critical point, but the dollars associated with the scopes of work were needed for us to consolidate and actually focus on the modernization and upgrades of our middle schools. Schools with any asbestos, flooring, or contaminants were the top priority, and the remaining schools were prioritized according to the committee's ranking. And of course, the Facilities Advisory Committee reported directly to the board, and they made a decision based on how they reviewed the information and prioritized accordingly. So hopefully, if and when you voters decide to move forward, potentially if we get another bond, we will be able to accomplish the work that we weren't able to accomplish with this particular bond. So the unfunded projects are going to be funded if we have savings left over from our current projects, and the projects in your attendance area that have been identified and grouped according to the prioritization plan is the American High School pool repair. And there were some repairs already done, but there's still more work that still needs to be done. And then American High School modernization phase 2, which is the completion of the modernization of the rest of the campus. And I believe another 2-story classroom building as well. But as I said, these are not funded projects, and these will be something that we can look to potentially complete in the future if other dollars become available. With that, I just want to thank you guys for your continued support of the Measure Bond program. And these projects are a direct result of the community support, and upgrading the district facilities will continue to allow your Fremont students access to a quality education. And if you have any specific questions about the program, please feel free to email Gerald. And of course, if you have any facilities related questions, please feel free to email myself. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Battle to go ahead and close out for us.
All right, well, thank you, Kelly. Excellent presentation. So now we're going to transition over to the question and answer for our community. There's been robust questions coming in as you've been presenting, Kelly. We'll get to the questions in a second, but for right now, Ms. Coco, do we have any speakers? And if we do have speakers, please raise your hand, but I'm still going to go through the Q&A. But any speakers, please raise your hand and we'll do those first.
Yes, I have 2 people with their hands raised, but Kelly, I think you have to make me the host in order for me to access this.
And I just did.
Thank you. Jennifer Hampton. You are muted. Oh, there you go.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hampton. As a parent in the largest attendance area, I'm very thankful that Thornton, along with all the other junior highs, will be getting a much needed modernization in its conversion to a middle school. I was also very happy to hear that the board approved the budget increase last August to accommodate the additional safety and code requirements that were later identified. As you can imagine, there is often discussion among parents about which school received more funding and why. My question tonight is related to the long-range facilities master plan that I understand helped determine needs and funding amounts for the projects tackled with Measure E. I attended the Washington Area Forum and learned that a report card is created for all the schools, which helps prioritize the needs. Could you share the report card scores for each of the junior highs when that report was done, or direct me and anyone listening to where to find that information? Thank you.
You're muted.
Kelly, you're on mute. Kelly, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was just making sure I wrote down your question. So the long range facilities master plan that was created for this current, or I should say, the long range facilities plan that was used in order for us to quantify the scope of work for this particular bond can be found on board docs, and it is also available on our district website. And if you go to, I believe it's the first section, there will be all of the schools identified, and then the location of that particular school and a detailed breakdown of all the scope of work for each school. That is where you'll be able to find that information.
Okay. Utra Srinivasan, go ahead.
Hi, I have my daughter here who wishes to speak. She was a student at Thornton.
Hi, my name is Hamsa Atreya. I went to Thornton Junior High 2 years ago, and Thornton was already really, really far behind all the other middle schools in Fremont, even before they were modernized at all. And I'm really concerned that even like now with the Measure E funding, the funds that were set aside for Thornton and say for Hopkins, they're too different. Like say, like, sorry, one second. Thornton is the biggest middle school in Fremont, and it needs so much more funding compared to all the other ones because there's a lot more catching up for Thornton to do that the other schools don't. It just seems to be a huge lack of funding. There's the dollars per student that have been set aside for Thornton Junior High. That ratio is so much lower for Thornton than for any of the other middle schools. So the other schools are just continuing to get more money for past measures, for more facilities and better upgrades, but Thornton hasn't. It really, really needs more funding. Is there a way to fix that lack of equity?
So I don't know, Marcus or CJ, did you all want to try and address it, or you want me to answer it?
Well, I mean, I always think that first I want to acknowledge and appreciate one of our students for taking the time to be part of this conversation. That's always important. And I recognize that being 7 months into my time in Fremont, I don't have the historical context that others may in terms of where each school is in their process. But I think in terms of the allocation of funds, that was something that was decided by the board a few years back, if I'm correct, Kelly. And I think the other thing that we have to look at is what continues to develop. So you recently saw the board allocate some additional funding for the needs for Thornton. And it's certainly something that I can carry forward to our Board of Education as well. But in the moment, I don't know that we would be able to readjust the plans for the Measure E dollars. It would be something that could be considered in the future if we had a different bond, or if other projects, which rarely happens, finished under budget, then the board may have an opportunity to consider what to do with other funds from the project.
And can I comment on that as well? Also, I would like to recognize the student for coming up and participating in this panel. That's important. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to let you know that when these projects were identified back in 2014, the estimated need for the district-wide was $1.6 billion. This was back in 2014. And the district only got about a third of that money. So there was much more need that was identified district-wide, including Thornton and some of the other schools, but the district was only able to go after $650 million, or about a third of that money. So that's it's not an inequity. It was just the realities of what was needed versus what the district could get at that time. So that's part of what you're seeing as well. I just want to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. So now I'm going to transition.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. What I meant was that even with all of the funding planned right now, it's still not equalized Thornton with any of the other middle schools. It's just, there's just such a big disparity in the facilities that Thornton is getting compared to what the other schools already have and are getting with this new funding plan?
Sorry to interrupt here. I think what she means to say is even when the LRFPs were drawn up and afterwards in all the consecutive board meetings that have happened up to now, funds have been allocated to Centerville and Hopkins separately for facilities above and beyond the scope at some of the other schools. Now, I guess we all understand that every campus is different, but there should be a standard set template and standardized facilities to some extent at all the schools. So it is very concerning. For example, when we did receive email sometime a few weeks back about fencing options, they were not standard. Some schools were somewhat improved and some schools were not. So given the fact that we are facing unprecedented budget cuts, why is this situation allowed to develop? Shouldn't the funding be more need-based, priority-based, where everybody has equitable facilities? I think that's what she's driving at. Thank you.
I can appreciate her question, and that is something that I have been working with the district to establish standards, because that is something that the district has not done for quite some time. And I've only been in my position a little less than a year. And so I don't really have a full grasp or understanding of the historical things that occurred prior to my arrival. But one of the things that we are working with M&O as well as facilities and business services is creating a standard that becomes standards across the district, whether it's a standard for elementary schools, a standard for middle schools, and a standard for high schools to address exactly what you're talking about. But it's not something that we can do like right away. It's not something that we can say, okay, we're going to decide to do, and in 30 days later it's done. It's something that we have been working on, Thornton, and you, as well as several other students, have contacted me, as well as Superintendent Mr. Battle, about some of the concerns that you have. And so I just wanted to assure you that we have not let your requests fall on deaf ears, but it is a process that we have to go through on the administrative side to establish the standards and work through the process that we have to go through to be able to implement those things. And I know you guys specifically asked about fencing, and everybody seems to think that fencing is kind of an insignificant thing, but it actually, for us on the maintenance and operations side and the facility side, becomes really important for us to have standardized, accepted materials that we can use to actually, one, create the public spaces that you guys can continue to use our facilities, but also to protect the facilities when they are modernized and the new work is done, so they're not vandalized and defaced and damaged. Because every time somebody gets into one of the campuses and does some damage, it actually takes away dollars that we would be spending to actually fix something else. So the fencing becomes really valuable to us because it allows us to now protect our assets that we have invested your dollars in to create the spaces that you all want to continue to have as a viable learning environment. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understood what the intention was, and that we are not trying to not be equal. But as Gerald stated, we only have so much money, and there's priorities that were created prior to my arrival, prior to Associate Superintendent Battles, and prior to Superintendent Kamick's tenure, that we're just kind of following through on what was already decided upon. But we're definitely interested in hearing, what your concerns are, and attempting to address them in some way.
Kelly, if I may just add on one quick thought there. The speaker was mentioning the current budget cuts that we're experiencing as a district. I want to reiterate that when it comes to the bond dollars, those are bond dollars that are local funds provided by our community through the general obligation bond, and those are not dollars that would be subject to budget reductions. So our current fiscal condition and our current fiscal challenges will not impact the bond program directly. The bond program is a promise that we make to voters to spend those funds, and it's restricted under the state guidelines as such. So any of our current challenges that we face as a district financially, the bond program itself would not be directly impacted by those. And I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Priya Raman, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm glad Ms. McMahon mentioned about safety and taking care of all the upgrades and equipment. I do want to bring up that American has always had break-ins over long vacation times, and we also had a break-in, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. What can be done to address this? Because we've lost equipment many times before, and I know the insurance pays for that, but all it ends up doing is the insurance cost goes up and the district has to come back and replace all this equipment. So what can be done? Is the district looking at putting in cameras? I know historically we've shied away from that because of privacy issues and concerns, but I think it's time we start looking at a holistic picture and see if putting cameras deters such break-ins. Maybe that's the way to go.
I'm going to actually direct that question to Kevin Arthur, because he and his team have been working diligently to address some of that items that you've talked about. So Kevin, can you provide her some information on some of the progress you guys have been making?
Yes, certainly. So we have been experimenting on some of our campuses with video cameras for security, and they seem to have helped somewhat. We also are experimenting with fencing. At one site right now, we have some temporary fence up in hopes of trying to keep people out of the areas during non-school time when vandalism usually occurs. We also have going to the board at some point a possible new security contract, which will help a security company better provide security throughout the whole district with roving guards and things like that. As far as a district-wide video, that would be something that would have to be looked at some point. And the board would obviously have to approve that were we to move forward with it.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have no more hands raised at this time, so if you want to go to the Q&A.
We'll go through some of the Q&A, Kelly, Gerald, and Kevin. So Kelly, a couple of questions regarding bathroom issues at in American High School. Are you aware of that issue, overcrowded bathrooms at American, and how is that being handled, if you are aware of that?
I'm actually not aware of that, but I do know, in speaking with the principal, that she's anticipating that the new bathrooms that have been installed in the new buildings should offset some of the overcrowding and issues that they were experiencing previously. So I don't really know how to answer those because I don't really have the full history on that stuff.
Okay. And there's another question regarding Centerville and Hopkins. I'm not sure if you have this information available, but somebody's asking, what is the reserve in the budget for Centerville and Hopkins?
Okay. I don't mind answering that question. I know that Gerald also probably will have some input on that, but that is a reserve that was set aside when I believe Walters was originally under construction. They ran into some geotechnical and structural issues with those new structures at that building that caused that budget to be inflated, I believe almost by $300,000 or $400,000 at that time. So as a measure of, what do they say, a pound of, anyway.
Pound of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. So the board saw at that time that since Fremont has a issue with their soils and foundation issues with some of their structures, rather than being caught off guard and not having sufficient funds to complete those two middle school projects, they decided to go ahead and allocate and set aside $4 million to address any potential surprises or unforeseen conditions that we would experience during construction to those two particular projects. And they did that because they felt that based on the historical information that they had with regard to Walters, they would more than likely experience the same thing at those two locations. So that's why those dollars were set aside. If those funds are not used for whatever reason, those dollars will be placed back into the contingency fund for the program, and they will decide where those dollars will be reallocated if they go unspent.
All right, thank you. Kelly, in terms of the HVAC upgrades at American, does that also include upgrades to the portables as well? The HVAC for the portables?
You know, I'm going to be honest, and I don't really know. I've been so focused on just the new buildings and the main campus that I'm not aware that we have any issues in the portables. Kevin, are you aware of any issues that we have with the portables and the HVAC at American?
No, and I believe they are not included in the work.
Yeah,
Since they are
typically it the upgrades only go to the fixed fixtures or buildings, fixed buildings as opposed to portables. So the portables would not be included.
Okay. When is the schedule for completion for Thornton? I think Kelly, you already said that the completion date, I believe, was that September of 23.
There's two completion dates. The new construction is September 2022, and the modernization is September 2023.
Okay.
So the entire project is 2023.
Is there a plan to add new restrooms in Thornton?
There are new restrooms included in the new facilities. The actual count of those, I don't have those off the top of my head, but they're welcome to email me or Gerald, and we'll be happy to provide them detailed information.
Okay, and I think we've already talked about the completion date. You said there were two for Thornton, and you gave those. There was a question about how many portables will be used as classrooms after construction is complete at Thornton, and when the conversion to middle school has occurred. What will be the percentage of permanent structures versus portable?
Just a moment.
So how many portables will be used as classrooms after construction is complete is the first question. How many portables will be remaining and be used as classrooms?
If I recall, and I don't have it in front of me, I believe there'll be 11 that will remain. And we are using the existing as well as bringing in new to supplement while construction is going on. But I believe that there will be 11 that will remain. And in terms of percentage, I don't know off the top of my head what that number is, even though I know we've been talking about district-wide portable counts and all of those things, but I don't have that information.
But for that site though, with 11 portables, I would imagine that the percentage would be fairly low.
Yeah.
In terms of total classrooms. As the HVAC of Brookvale is in need of replacement, is there a way to speed up replacement given the need for better air circulation as the pandemic continues? Kelly or Kevin?
I'm going to defer to Kevin on that.
Yeah, so I don't believe that portion of the project can be pulled away from the rest of the project since it's all under one umbrella. However, as part of our ongoing efforts to help in the pandemic, we have recently purchased air purifiers where we will install one of these in every classroom across the district. We certainly would have those in place in Oliveira during the construction or before the construction starts. But as far as jumping that HVAC portion ahead, I do not believe that would be possible.
Thank you, Kevin. And Kelly, regarding the standards that you talked about, you made a lot of reference to the standards. Some folks are wondering when will those standards be developed because they want to make sure that if they're going to vote for another bond, they want to make sure that the funds are applied equitably across all schools.
The goal is to have our standards work completed, hopefully by fall. It's not something that we can do pretty quickly because we actually have to work with our design teams to, put together basically profiles of each school and identify systems and, going through our own bureaucratic process of review. So it's not something that will happen very quickly, but the goal is to have it prepared and ready for evaluation by fall.
Okay, and about Oliveira, when will the work start and end?
Just a second. Actually, Gerald, can you answer that one while I write these?
Get some
notes?
help from the project manager here.
Yeah, that goes into our group 2 projects. And so that work will be starting the end of this year.
Okay. And Kelly, there should be enough bathrooms once all the work is completed at Thornton. There's another question about bathrooms.
Correct. So we have made sure we've met with the principal. We've also met with our internal facilities and M&O folks to ensure that we're meeting our requirements for the amount of students per site, that the accurate load that the form that we have to go by is met. So there should be sufficient bathrooms to accommodate the students that are on site. Now, speaking with my hat on as a parent, there's never enough bathrooms, there's never enough, toilets and sinks when you have a class that's going into a bathroom in between. But we are meeting our requirements and we are meeting our ed code requirements for facilities and facility standards.
Okay, and the next question is not facilities or Measure E related, but we'll see if our superintendent would like to answer this question. It's will Fremont funding for talented and gifted students be restored? For gifted and talented students.
For the GATE program, I'll have to check in with our instructional services team. I apologize that I can't answer that in the moment. I didn't have that information in front of me for this meeting, but if whoever's asking the question would like to email me, my email is on the website. I'd be happy to work with our instructional services team and respond a little bit about where our GATE funding is for those programs.
Okay, thank you. Is there an improvement for the American High tennis courts, Kelly, under this measure?
Under this particular bond, no, there is not.
Okay. Are there any reallocation of funds or remaining funds to be allocated to safely reopen the schools upon the county's approval after COVID?
I'm not sure I understand that question, but we are not, if it's related to COVID, we have COVID dollars.
Right.
If it's related to the bond program, I can answer it. But the COVID question, I'm not sure I fully understand it.
I mean, ultimately, any money that we're receiving from the state or federal government in terms of a COVID response is going to be restricted to specifically that. So in the example of what Mr. Arthur shared in terms of air purifiers, that would be an appropriate response, an appropriate expenditure, and that it does in some ways indirectly relate to facilities or a facility enhancement. But other than that, if there was any money that wasn't spent in that regard, it would still remain a categorical fund. And we have deadlines to spend those monies where if we don't, I'm pretty sure Mr. Battle can confirm that the state or federal government will just be claiming those funds back from us.
Yes.
And to piggyback on that, we wouldn't be able to use Measure E funds for COVID efforts.
All right. Kelly, is there a plan to convert portables to fixed classrooms? Not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but the portables are fixed classrooms in the sense that they're not going anywhere. They're just on a different type of foundation. So I'm not sure I understand that question, but I'll that's my answer.
Okay.
To speak to that a little bit, at Hopkins, we'll be making 4 portables permanent.
Okay.
Thanks. Kevin, the next question is for you. With the new air purifiers, some of our guests would like to know how much square feet will that cover?
They'll cover a typical classroom, which is about 930 square feet, I believe, is the typical classroom size in the district. And they definitely will cover that.
Okay, that's great. Is there any oversight to make sure funds are spent the most cost effectively and good quality of work is achieved? So Kelly, how do we, when you are having these projects, how do we ensure that the money is being used effectively and we're getting quality work product?
Well, I guess that's why we have our Vanner construction management team and Gerald and his team. They provide our professional services that provide the oversight of the actual program. And we have, as you all saw, a team of people that actually monitor and manage the day-to-day activities of each one of the programs. And Gerald, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, so me and my team are responsible for making sure that the district builds exactly what the bond monies were allocated for. And so that's our job. And so we do that on a day-to-day basis. And we also ensure that we are getting quality work. We have inspectors that come and look at the work, and we're making sure that it meets the master plan. And we also have someone watching over us, which is the District Citizens Oversight Committee. And they also make sure that the district funds are being used responsibly and that there's zero waste.
All right, thank you. Kelly, is Thornton still on target to convert to a 6th, 7th, 8th grade model for the 22-23 school year? Is there anything in the current plan that could potentially delay that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, and we would have to circle back with our instructional team to ensure that that is still the plan. But we are operating under the assumption that 6th graders will occupy fall of 2022.
22.
Okay. About Patterson's new building for the science lab, is this new construction or is it modernization?
So can you repeat that question for me, Marcus?
For the Patterson science lab. It says, the question is interesting, because it said about Patterson new building for science lab, is this new construction? So if it's a new building,
it's new
probably
construction.
gonna be a new construction, right?
New construction.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
and our final question for the evening, the V is saying, Kelly, you or Gerald never answered the question about Oliveira. You said when it would start, but they were waiting for when it finishes. They wanted to know, when is it gonna finish? Projected.
Okay. Let me
I think that's
see.
2023, but I don't have the information right in front of me.
Pull up my schedule really fast and I'll be able to answer that question. I apologize. I thought that I did.
Well, you guys discussed Gerald said it was going to start by this fall.
Let me see. I'm gonna just go to my schedule really quick. It will, if it starts on time, it should be a 9-month project. So the goal is to have it start in 2022 and finish in fall of 2022.
Okay, great.
But barring
Thank you.
challenges with our approvals, that's the intended schedule, but it may change based on that.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So I think that concludes the questions and answers and our panelists. So we will, as always, allow our superintendent to close out the session.
Mr. Battle, I want to thank staff for being here, and most especially thanks to our community for your engagement. I think the feedback and the questions are great, and certainly well worth the conversation about how do we ensure that the money provided by the community is spent equitably throughout the community. And I can bring that feedback to our Board of Trustees. And I really appreciate the community's involvement in the questions, and I look forward to being part of many good things to come in terms of how we improve our facilities across the district, but also for the American attendance area. So thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you all a safe and healthy rest of the week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.